Um, I'm sure that I'm audible. If at all you have any questions, I would request you to have the questions written down. We will try and answer most of the questions at the end of the session. But short of time, if we are not able to, we definitely will respond back in an email or a document. We will collectively take it from the people who have gathered here for today's webinar. The speaker for today's event on business continuity management, the challenges and the way forward, is Mr. Vaidyanathan, who's our senior consultant of IAM, who have got close to about 220 years of experience in disaster recovery, emergency response plan, business continuity management, and he's a certified BCMS expert as well as a practitioner. I have totally about 2 years experience in information security, along with operational safety. I've been part of the health, safety, and environment crisis management plan, as well as business continuity, as well as certified lead auditor. With that introduction, I think we will straight away go on for today's discussion. This would, as I said earlier, this would take about 60 minutes, and that's what slated. We have people from different verticals. Most of them are customer. There are a few working with who have joined this session. Okay, people who have joined recently just now, I would request you to mute your microphone so there is no unwanted disturbances while we do this webinar. This is a request from us so that we can continue with the topic. Okay. So as I said, that we have people from different functions, different verticals, and the common denominator that we thought we will have it for this webinar today is more on the process oriented and because most of them are technically savvy in the group. So how to effectively handle the process side of it when it comes to the BCP or the BCMS rather. And what we're going to be talking today is beyond the basics, right? Most organizations confuse the operational risk with the BCP. We will probably have an example later part of the session that this is beyond the basics. You know, we don't take an operational risk as part of the BCP. It is something beyond that we need to think, and the leadership team along with the technical team would have to think about it and then arrive at a solution of how we are going to handle the situation. Like, so that is what we will be talking about. This is a term that most of us use, identification or identify the black swan. There is absolutely no swans, which is black in color. But what we are trying to do, that is identifying the black swan. You have to really look through in all views, through all eyes, and 360 when you're actually planning for a good business continuity and a disaster recovery management plan. The word beyond is always used when it comes to BCMS is because you'll have to really think out of the box. The normal situations are never taken into the factor for such an exercise. People will have to really beyond the normal way or the normal vision that they could have. So that is what we will talk about and dwell about. Of course, we will talk about the challenges and the way forward. At the end of the session, we would have question answers. We will try and answer as much as we could. But for want of time, as I already said, if there is any questions that we are not able to answer today, we will definitely write it back to you, and it will be applicable for the entire people who have gathered for this webinar. Most of us probably know or would have experienced the multiple disasters. It could be the expected or the unexpected ones. It could be natural calamities. It could be of political disturbances. It could be operational related, disaster or discontinuity, or it could be something that we are facing as of now. It could be a pandemic or a equipment sabotage or a wildlife willful destruction. In today's context, if I have to say, this pandemic has gripped everybody's attention. It is very unfortunate the pandemic situation, if it is contained to one geographic location, there is some other geographical location which could probably help us and offer us services. But unfortunately, at this juncture, it's a global level pandemic, uncontainable, and most of the organization in the last 3 weeks that we have been, answering and giving them responses, giving them some ad hoc suggestions and services and support, have found them in a situation that they can't help themselves. Some of the organizations have got a mature process in place. Some of them have not had that opportunity to have that kind of a process in place. But universally, the challenges are pretty much the same that you and I would be looking forward, and that is what we will look into. In the case of severe psychoeconomic trauma, there are other support functions that are there to come and help you out. But when more than multiple complex situation and affects us, that is where we are into a major crisis and unable to respond. Either probably we have not thought through about these situations, or we have thought through that but we have not practiced how we are going to address this situation. So most of the, if I put that in a quadrant for different organizations, most of them in a situation that they never thought of this, or some organizations have thought of this but they have not practiced it. But some organizations have also done a practice to it to an extent, but did not have the relevant bandwidth, because this pandemic situation, we are not talking about the infrastructure, we are not talking major about the process, but at the core is the people dependency. People are not available to this, or not equipped to make themselves available during this pandemic situation. So this is one off, and probably this can keep coming and haunting us. And that's the reason why we thought we will do the session. We'll take a collected response from our existing clients to find out how they have handled the situation, and how we have helped a couple of other organizations to come out of this situation, though, right? So, as I said, natural, social, operations, and others, most of these, if not all, would have to have a proper, systematic, standard business continuity process, or a plan, or a disaster recovery plan and a process in place. Technically, you might have all the gears that you want. Maybe you may probably have the resources, if not adequate, but if it is not tested, and if it is not adequate, and if it is not going to help you, the timely help, if it is not going to really support the functions, then it is not going to be of any use at any point in any situation. So having said that, the challenges that we have culminated out of the last 4 to 5 weeks, from different walks and different people, I've listed it down. This is applicable to the current situation, and this is applicable in future as well. It is not of any chronological order, but these are the main factors that most of us probably could relate to. Very recently, we would have found the leadership team unable to take a decision on whether to invoke a BCP or not. The reason is, this is something of a situation that unprecedented situation that they have not probably thought about. And there is a cascading effect, because they know that as a leader of organization, the leadership team is probably not equipped with all the information that you need in order to take a decision. Or even if they have all the information in order to aid the decision, people do not want to take the first step. They are not willing to do. Who's going to bell the cat? If I'm going to take a decision, what are the repercussions? Am I taking the decision much earlier than I'm supposed to, or should I have to wait? So there are such a situation that people have really wasted the time. If they had taken the time, if they have taken the decision to invoke the BCP, probably they would have saved some more time to probably execute the process that they actually wanted to execute. In this situation, the resources was not adequate, or they did not plan for adequate resources. When I mean resources, it is not just limited to the infrastructure or it is not related to the process. It is equally to the people as well. In general sense, people probably nominate a member from a team without knowing the core values that they're going to be operating in a crisis situation, their mental stability, their their decision making. Are they given the thumb rule of making a decision making? Are they given a ownership? Are the responsibilities being made sure that they take the responsibility and execute it? So those kind of things were lacking during this time of this pandemic situation. Uh, I would request a member of the team to mute his microphone while we are doing this webinar. I'm extremely sorry. We're getting a lot of feedback. Yeah, that helps. And there is also a lack of management support. The initial budget that we would probably have done probably were not even revised or revisited. And hence, during the time of this situation, there was a lot of laptops and desktop needs to be procured, a lot of logistics services that was required. And during that time, the person who's supposed to be approving the financial approving capacity, unfortunately, was not available to do that. So the man in action was missing. That is part of the management team to identify if a person is not available, if the key decision maker, if he is not available to help surmount the pressure, who else will be able to take that action? So that was a major challenge that we have faced, and I'm sure that most of the organization have also undergone the same thing. Everything boiled down to the IT support team in this scenario. They were burning the midnight oil. They were doing the last minute rush. They were developing system. They were building systems. They were coordinating for the logistics. There were final decisions that were made whether to send desktops home. And then during this time, a major crisis was left open. A Pandora box was left open. No one took really care about the cybersecurity. Everything was left open. The VPN tunnels were left open just because they wanted to give access to everybody. But no one did not think about what could really happen if adequate controls are not put in place for the new set of rules that was written onto the infrastructure. So work from home, work from anywhere, no matter, they did not care who to whom this is being given, but it was left open, right, left and center. So information security took a real backseat here. During this time, a potential ransomware attack or anything could have added, misery to the crisis that we are already facing. So there was a backseat, a blind spot that was also seen from most of the organization, which probably had a BCP in place and still went with this episode, right? And then some organization had something on like a Bible or to help them out, but unfortunately that was obsolete and was not relevant whatsoever in current scenario. And they were never trained, never tested. It is never going to help if you have a document which has not been read by anybody, was never trained or never tested. Those parameters that you have to have tested was never looked into as an idealistic parameter. Of course, as I already said, the cybersecurity controls, some organization would have had ISMS implemented, some may not have. Some people who have been monitoring the services, some did not have. But at the baseline, the cybersecurity was at ground zero when this happened. And during the time of this crisis, the hardware and the software, the compatibility of what is going to be working, the new rule that was enforced on the teleworking policy, like the VPN Connect, did it really help them to have the latest hardware meeting the standards of the software? And was that covered in the BCP invocation clause? That was a question that nobody was able to respond back. The volume of the resources that they anticipated, not only for this one, in any scenario, is never going to really meet unless we do the continuous process of doing a test. It could be a desktop test or any type of test, but unless you test and validate your metrics and parameters, you are bound to be in this situation each and every time. Of course, the business pressure, they are trying to make the turning the crisis into an opportunity. Of course, sometimes it really helps, but not all. The worst part that had happened for most of the organization was the missing link, because the service provider generally in an organization, when an organization as an entity have a BCP in place, it could be fire, it could be anything else contained to that organization, there are someone to come and help you from the service provider's end, or the third stakeholders, the stakeholders that you are entitled with. But unfortunately, in this situation, even the service provider and the external stakeholders, they have to cover their own BCP, and they are not able to help you when you actually need those services. So these new dimensions, when there is absolutely no one to help you, when you have to run the BCP on your own, is what the crisis management and the leadership team would have to really look into. So there is a flip change in the way the world is going to be looking into BCP, rather than the normal operational risk that has been taken into consideration so far. So having said that, there is also a myth about the business continuity program or the plan. It is never going to be cheap if you think, because it depends on how we are going to sustain your business, how are we going to take care of the reputation losses, how are you going to come out of the financial crisis. So if you put a value to that, you will end up in a position to find out which is optimum. When I say cheap, I'm talking about inexpensive or less expensive. And most of them think that when I put a BCP in place, or if I've got a BCMS in place, it is going to prevent a disaster. No, disaster is never preventable. You're you are having the readiness to have, or to contain it, or to have adequate control in order to have a disaster likely to occur, or to have the prevention action in place. It is not at all necessary, I repeat it, it is not at all necessary to have all the risks to be mitigated. You will have to waive the risk, find out to what extent is it going to really burn your pockets, and then find out whether the adequate business continuity plan and disaster recovery plan are implemented. Finally, there are some organizations who still think that if I take my tape backups, that would get me to a safer harbor. It is not the case. It is one part or one quadrant of a BCP exercise that organization would have to really implement. Recovery does not mean always the ASAP, as soon as possible. You are entitled to have a risk assessment program in place to identify when the organization will be in a position to have an optimized services in place, provided the board and the organization comes to an agreement saying that, yes, I am okay with this one, but I would probably take more time. Or if I have to reduce the time, I'll have to invest a lot. So it is not always ASAP. It depends on the impact, that business impact assessment that you do, to find out where and all this is going to percolate to, and what are the losses, and how do you reduce the loss. And finally, BCP is not someone's or the BCP team's responsibility. It is an entire organization responsibility, just like your security services that you enforce. Even one missing link, the person who is supposed to be an approver or an authorizing for certain purchase, if he is also missing, the entire chain of the BCP is broken. It is difficult to mend at the point in time where you're going to sit and think about what can we do, because you don't have the luxury of time when you're actually invoking or working on a BCP. As always said, plan is good, but it is not enough. And don't think nothing further is required. Once when you put the plan in place, everything follows the plan. and everybody follows the plan. And then you revisit the plan and you make sure there is always a continuous improvement. So this is something, a myth that I wanted to break before I hand over to Mr. Vaidyanathan, who would take her on the technicalities of the business continuity management program. Over to Mr. Vaidi, who would talk about what is BCP and DR.
Good afternoon, friends. Vaidyanathan here. And see, as Ganesh had told earlier, BCP is different from operational risk handling. This has to be clearly embedded in each and everyone's mind and system, because this term BCP is being used very loosely in modern day parlance. The thing is that suppose I have heard a lot of my IT friends say, I am expecting flooding in OMR, so I'm shutting down this particular department here and I'm going to operate from Hyderabad. This is not BCP. Okay. Initially, when the organization was there, let us say a single office, single location organization, because of their interest in providing continuous service to their customers, they have opted for an alternate location, which was a part of their BCP at that point of time. Agreed. Once the second location is also in operation, then this has to be taken as operational issues only. It has to be taken as operational issues only. So there is an operational risk of flooding, so I'm operating from there. Once it stabilizes here, I'm going to come back here. That's all. Now, in this scenario, how do I think about BCP is that when both locations A and B go out of action, what do I do? This is where the leadership team has to really think about. Let us assume that I am having only two locations. I had one. I had another. Good. Now, if both go out of service, what do I do? That is what is meant by the black swan. The swan is always white in color. I am looking at a scenario which is nearly improbable, but here two locations going out of service is definitely there. Say, let us suppose that there is a flooding in one place, and there is a likelihood that there can be a political unrest in the place where my alternate office is there. A very rare situation. But if it persists for maybe 3 days, 4 days, a week, or 10 days, how do I handle? At that point of time, cannot think and arrive at a solution. This is where the organization needs to have that strategic thinking. So all these risks are handled at three levels. One is the strategic, that is the top management. Then you have the tactical and the operation. Strategic people have to clearly articulate to their teams what they are expecting and encourage the teams to come up with solutions and then evaluate that and keep a particular plan ready. This is the crux of BCP. Look at some situations where I am expecting a disaster, but that event I am unable to predict. As Ganesh had told earlier, this pandemic along with ransomware, even if you need manpower to come and do forensic studies in your operation, nobody is allowed to get out of their houses. Correct? So how do I handle such things? So the thing is that based on our experience, that is our work experience, taking the help of experts, we try to arrive at some basic steps as to what I will do in case of such a situation. And these situations should be a little bit realistic also. So that, see, we can keep on talking about n number of hypothetical situations. That is not our intent. Where the chance is there, we try to have a BCP for. So the business continuity plan, as in this slide, seeks to prevent interruption of mission critical services and re-establish full functioning as soon as possible. That is, I have a backup plan where I will restore within the defined time. Next slide, Ganesh. what are the consequences of not having a BCP and DR in place is that reputation loss. Reputation loss in the sense that if I'm offering a critical service to, say, probably a customer, and he is dependent on my particular product or service, he will be expecting me to have a tough, resilient approach in case there is a disaster at my premises. And if I don't live up to his expectations, definitely the value which he has on my organization will definitely take a dent. It is not that next day we'll lose business or anything like that, but it will pave way for my business to slowly wane and fade away. And suppose if there are linked contractual clauses and all, then definitely irreparable and unmanageable financial loss also. And a lot of organizations, when they're doing the BCP planning, they forget to take the insurance concept into their planning, where they are unable to manage this financial loss also. Because premium might be quite heavy, but at that point of time, if something happens, there is nobody to support them financially, ultimately leading to their. Next slide, Ganesh. So people who are conversant with BCP will and the planning stage will be conversant with this slide. So just a small recap of that. So MAO, let us suppose an organization is traversing from left to right. An organization is offering its services and products, and everything is normal. When there is a disaster, that is, the service level go to zero or maybe much less than the normal service delivery. And MAO, that is the maximum acceptable outage, or sometimes we use the term maximum tolerable period of disruption, is the time frame which the organization knows that if I don't recover my service within this time, my reputation is at stake. My reputation is at stake. Let us assume that I need to recover by, say, 4 hours. Beyond which, if I don't do that, that means in front of my customer, I hang my head in shame. So that is the maximum acceptable outage. This is based on knowledge of the industry and the knowledge of the people who are working in the industry, that this is the time where I can afford an outage. Okay. Then immediately after the disruption, the organization starts their recovery activity. And based on their agreement with the client, that is the organization and the client, they try to restore their services to a minimum acceptable. Okay, let us assume that the organization decides that the MAO is about 4 hours. So typically, as a thumb rule, most of the organizations take their recovery time objective, RTO as they call, as at about 50%, meaning that in about 2 hours time, I should have my services operating at a level which is acceptable to the customer. How is this decided? Based on the agreement between the organization and the customer, which is documented. Okay? So minimum business continuity objective is the minimum level of service which the organization offers to the customer. Let us assume that there is a service provider offering me 100 lines. In case of a disaster, he says that, sir, within 1 hour, I will restore 40 lines. That means that 1 hour is the RTO and 40 lines is the MBCO, meaning that, and this is not unilaterally decided by the organization, decided both by the organization and the customer. In case the customer is not a direct party in this agreement, then the organization has to understand the feel of the customers for them to arrive at the RTO and at the MBCO. And then they start recovering. And then, so at the RTO and MBCO level, the comfort level of the organization is that the salary is guaranteed for the employees. That is to be understood very clearly by the organization, meaning that the customer has accepted the degraded service for that point of time, and meaning that the sustainability of the organization is not a question at that point of time, and the organization, based on further recovery, will reach the regular service. Next slide, Ganesh. So what are all the various aspects that go into BCP? So BCP, even though we may think that it is some sort of a single document, it is some sort of document which has a lot of input and output. Say, it will typically consist like maybe emergency response, your incident management, your continuity plan, your resumption and recovery and all. To provide the inputs for all those, the first and foremost thing is that I need to have a thorough understanding of my business and the underlying risk. And I need to understand who are all my stakeholders and what all value I provide to them. For example, regulators will be watching you whether you are adhering to all the requirements during normal time and during a disaster. Okay. Say, for example, I am from a telecom background. I was working with a cellular organization and we faced two major DC scenarios. One was the unprecedented flooding of Chennai, 2015, followed by Varda. And Varda was a typical case study, which I will tell later. Now, the thing is that when all our sites go down, the regulator will be chasing us as to what will be the recovery time and how many sites have been restored. We need to give inputs to them. If we don't give inputs to them on time, then that is constituted as a non-compliance and notice is sent to the organization. So the thing is that you need to understand the requirements of the stakeholders and you need to satisfy the requirements not only during business as usual, as well as business. For this, extraordinary planning is needed. And the thing here is that you cannot plan during a crisis moment or a crisis situation. That is why broad-minded organizations or organizations who have an extraordinary leadership will take sufficient time to understand this and have that documented in the form of a BCP. Meaning that once a BCP is invoked, all the processes which have been listed out in the BCP will be followed in toto. The normal processes will not be followed. For example, I will tell you, suppose you need the help from a vendor to do certain things. Maybe recover your alternate site. You cannot be asking for 3 quotations at that point of time, discussing with your purchase like that. All those things will be laid out in your BCP itself so that when this is invoked, I will behave in. So keeping that in mind, so that that organization is also knows its risks, has its understandings of the business. It also knows that what are all the weaknesses are there in its system, has an understanding of the realistic threats that can manifest. Then it also has some sort of a plan that what I need to do in case what these things manifest. So the prime responsibility of the leadership team is not only to grow business, but to prevent the harm that is happening here in the system. In fact, this has a parallel to Chanakya's Arthashastra also, where the duties of the king is also laid down by. Next slide, Ganesh. So you try to understand. So how do I start developing my BCP? Is that I understand my business and where am I positioned in the business chain? Am I a supplier or am I a partner or am I a service provider? Then the moment I start having my BC in concept, then I try to have a business continuity structure that these people will be running the show. Then who are all the vendors and partners I need for my support? Then people who need to perform certain activities related to business continuity, like business impact analysis. Business impact analysis is primarily done on critical business processes. That is the engine of the organization. Engines also. Like I have these many critical processes, and in case I don't do these processes, what is the impact on the organization with respect to maybe regulatory impact, maybe customer impact, financial impact, and all. This is prime arrive at your RTO, recovery time. Okay, so that I have my recovery strategies designed according. Then I do a risk analysis. Risk analysis is basically done on all the enablers which help me to do my business processes. Like suppose I need to have this application for me to serve my customer. Suppose that application is not there. What do I do? What is my fallback plan? Suppose the server has crashed. What is my server rebuild time? Or do I have another alternate server which is configured maybe on a real-time mode? So all your, suppose I'm having a call center which is handling a huge volume of calls. Should I have a hot standby call center at some other place with trained manpower available there? Should it be a hot standby site? Should it be a cold site? Should it be a warm site? So as you do your business impact analysis and risk analysis, the recovery strategy will automatically surface. You need not think about that. It will automatically surface. Then arrive at the resources needed to execute BCP, manpower, IT, infra, this, that, and all. Micro level input. Right now, what is happening? People are telling you can work from home. Okay. Now, what has happened is that most of the people, thanks to these 4G technologies, people were thinking that if they have a hotspot, they can hook on to their computers and start working from home itself. Now, because of this extraordinary situation, where we used to get 10 Mbps or 6, 7 Mbps speed, now it is struggling at kbps level because everybody is on the net only, the wireless net. So the organization also needs to understand that if I need to work from home, whether that infrastructure is available with that particular employee, it is the duty of the organization to do this micro level planning so that nothing is a surprise to the organization when it needs to invoke the BCP. Okay? So the critical manpower means, let us assume that there are 100 people in the particular function. I need to have maybe about 10 or 15% of the people who know A to Z of what is happening in the particular function, so that in the BCP situation, they will be able to guide the other people who may not be having that expertise maybe in that area, so that the work goes on uninterrupted. So this is a very, very critical area, like the resources, whether you need a physical standby site like that. So the next slide. So the business continuity plan, as I told you, is some sort of a complex document based on all these inputs, say, which has the emergency response, that is the immediate response to an emergency. Say, for example, an evacuation plan, then an incident management plan. Say the management, they say, how do you respond to that incident? So you may need to have a crisis communication plan. Then you need to have the real continuity plan. That is the initial business response, so that the essential activities we can continue to operate at a minimum acceptable level. That MBCO I told you in the earlier slide. Then it will have the resumption plan also. That is a plan to resume the activities so that it is at a sustainable level. And recovery. Recovery means either we can come back to the original site, or in case the original site is damaged, I start operation from the new site itself. And remember, this standard, business continuity BCMS 22301, as ISO calls it, the initial words which are used in this standard, that is the name of the standard itself, is societal security. Societal security, meaning that my prime concern is to take care of the society. So just thinking about from an organization standpoint, our first concern is to take care of our own employees. So the starting step which any organization will do is that I will do a fire evacuation drill. Then I will try to train people on first aid. Okay. And maybe a little bit means, let us assume the premises is not available for one day, whether people are able to operate from their respective residences. Organizations, unfortunately, they stop with these three activities alone. What happens when a critical application crashes, which he has availed from a third-party provider? Only when you probe further, you will know that the application which you are using is an aggregation from 4 or 5 suppliers to give you that consolidated application which you are using it as a CRM. So your recovery time should match or should be much, much better than your suppliers or vendors, or whatever you commit to your customer should take that in the background for you to commit your recovery time. Then you have a communication plan for all your stakeholders. Your training and awareness, this is very, very important. What you exactly need to do. You need to tell your vendors, you need to tell your partners that my organization has taken a business continuity management approach. You are my partner in this. I expect you to do all these things in terms of a crisis. Let us assume you don't tell that. Suddenly you order for a box, there is some crisis here, give me some 100 cotton boxes. What is business continuity? If that vendor starts talking something, you will get jittery. You don't know what to do at that point of time. That the same thing is that the way you handle your own staff, you have to handle the entire people in the chain, including the society, including your vendors, partners. Then exercising and testing is very, very important. You see, organizations will definitely not allow people to shut down systems to do this, but it can be done in a phased way. Let us assume that, see, in fact, in our organization, we have a structured walkthrough. We have a structured walkthrough, meaning that for that particular BCP, I have to go there and do these activities physically. So meaning when we wanted to test the fire hydrant system, as and when we were going around the office, we found the hose, but that some sort of a conical copper system which is used to direct the jet of water, someone had stolen that. This is a practical problem which is there. So the thing is that at that point of time, you assume that, see, I don't know if people have seen the way the firemen handle the water hoses. Tremendous pressure will be there, and that will be directed by the fine nozzle. And that at that point of time, if that copper, that is, it will be some sort of a cone with a point, with a small opening, that was stolen at that point of time. This is the real importance of this walkthrough. And people who are handling IT systems and all, you need to say, suppose if there is a system which is used to log in onto the customer thing, whether all the patches are there, whether the things are working. Really, you need to plug it onto the system and see that when you switch on the laptop, the login screen comes uninterrupted. I have seen in my own organization that the moment is when we do this walk-in through, patch update will take 45 minutes. I'm telling you. So then we need to fine tune the system that why you have not done that, what is preventing the person from not doing that, and fine tune that. Because in a BCP situation, when you need to serve the customer, it may be a small, that is a reputation aspect, right? When a customer needs help, I need to respond immediately. I tell him that 45 minutes, I need to have my patch updates, means it doesn't look like. And the last aspect is that continuous improvement. Continuous improvement means I do my testing, I learn, and I improve my BCP. Yeah. Next. Yeah, 1 second. I will just minus 345. Ganesh, I'll give you only one.
Yeah.
I'll give you one example before I hand over the session to you. About 2 minutes
Sure.
only. See, as I told you, extraordinary situation. See, in my cellular service, every year we used to face a cyclone and flooding and all. So, as operation team members, we used to take a lot of interest from our organization, arrange manpower, and go around the city restoring the sites. That is, the antennas would have got misaligned, diesel topping, this, that, fibers would have got cut, lay that, this, that, and all. I can do an elaborate this thing, but I'm just telling you the crux. But during Varda, what happened was, usually we have a brainstorming session only on the day before the cyclone. So all these guys do. Suppose if there is a shortage of cash, we ourselves will pitch in some money and all, maybe 10,000-20,000 rupees like that. Next day, the organization used to reimburse this thing. But for this Varda cyclone, I don't know what happened. Out of pure fluke only, we survived. What happened was, We had called for this meeting a week before this, some sort of there is an impending cyclone. Simply we wanted to note down the points. So we thought that if there is a shortage of money, we'll take some 10,000-20,000 rupees from ourselves and we'll do that. Then only we realized that demonetization was in place. And nobody can draw more than 2,000 rupees from their own bank account. See, it was only because of God's grace we saved our own faces as general managers and vice presidents who are there in the organization. If people do not know what is the impact of a particular happening which is happening there, maybe in the society or maybe in the country, how it is going to impact my operations, then I think it will cut a really sorry figure, not only in front of the management, but to our own self, because we are in so much work experience, but we are not translating that into meaningful output. So immediately what we did was we told our management, because management has to talk to maybe to the Reserve Bank or maybe some of their senior people to arrange money, and we took the help of the district administration, maybe the secretariat and all, to tell these people, maybe in the petrol bunks and all, you have to give us a lot of diesel, this, that and all. And really we had that 1 week utilized just for PR activities only. So that on the day of the cyclone, we had huge challenges, no doubt. But these challenges, like we didn't have money, like we used to have earlier, and now it is not there. All these things were taken care by the management, while earlier it was taken care by us operation people. So the concluding remark which I want to make is that, see, we can develop an interest in running the organization and sustaining it, not only from a profit perspective, but to prevent. See, the BCP is, they're not telling that incidents should not occur. It will occur. But the incidents which occurs is a total surprise to me. It is not at all on my radar. In spite of this, this has happened. So this, we can develop an interest in this only when we know the value of the BCP and its superiority. So this is, so how do I develop this is that only when I keep on understanding my business and the environment surrounding that, what we call it as the context of the organization. With this,
Thanks,
I conclude.
thank you, Mr. Vaidyanathan.
Yeah.
Thank
Sorry
you.
for taking the maybe a little bit.
That is fine. That is fine. So what the way forward that I am, and with the expertise of our consultants, what we recommend to our clients and our so-called clients and us in future as well. Now on this unprecedented situation, most of the organizations, they have been having calls, right, left, and center about. People have been asking, our clients have been asking, how do we implement business continuity management system in our organization? There are small organizations, there are medium and large enterprises which probably had some, if not all. This is probably the right time to have this thought about. The reason is having such an impact and the economic crisis that we foresee, doing business or engaging in business is going to be a real situation in future, and we anticipate this as a compliance factor for most of the organization who are either delivering services, delivering products, delivering solutions. So there could be a compliance that is going to be mandatory, just like your security, your privacy. The DRBCP, we envisage that this is going to be a mandatory compliance for anybody who has probably got a GST to work with, to have this compliance in place. So if it maybe not to the level of certification process, at least a robust implementation plan so that it can be demonstrated to the organization or to your clients or to your vendors or your service providers, whoever it is that you're going to be working with. So having said that, we have come up with an easy approach called the ADIO approach, which is our forefront framework for most of our services that we offer, which stands for Assess, Design, Implement, and Operate. The model is applicable to almost all frameworks that we operate. And equally for the business continuity management and disaster recovery as well. So as Mr. Vaidya rightly said, first you'll have to understand to whom you are offering the services, understand the business value, the business proportion, the value of the business that you're going to bring in across the table. Of course, follow it up with the risk assessment and also business impact analysis. They both complement each other. There is value that you derive out of the BIA as well as the RIA. So the results of these would give you a clear evidences of where you stand, what you're supposed to do, and how you are going to be doing it, and where you will have to get past in order to have your BCMS in place. The design factor would is the most challenging factor because it requires everybody's attention, everybody's contribution, right from top to bottom, right? So the business continuity plan document itself is a major Bible that everyone would be looking for, like a ready reckoner. Not only in the form in during the time of crisis, it should be well rehearsed, well thought about, well read. It should be very good articulated and easily understandable, not only by your organization, and should be a content or should be also shared to your service provider, because it is going to be a 360 document, because the stakeholders who are offering services to you would also have to contribute when you are in such a situation, right? That goes equally for your disaster recovery plan, as there is a fine line between the DR and the BCP. And unless you train your folks, both internal and external, to do what is required to be done by the individual at what point in time and why and how it is to be done, there is no point in having a BCP document. The design factor would also require a tweak in the way your infrastructure is being set up, the way your security is also being set up, the way the process is being set up, the way the people are going to be responsible for that. So the design factor involves everything. Next comes the challenges of the implementation. During the time of implementation, you find a lot of challenges, and with the challenges that you have, you go back to your design to find out, hey, this challenges, I have not thought about it. I will have to rework on the design part of it. So it's going to be a living document, and this is going to go move from A, D, I, and O, and then come back as a 360, right? Also think about an alternate premises. Most of the organization knows that it is, if in the event of one location not available, I can always operate it from other location. But for a smaller organization, they do not have the luxury of setting up an alternate organization. Find out whether you can tie up with a cloud service provider if they could offer the continuity of your critical services. So those comes under the design as well as the implementation factor. These are some of the high level points that we dwell upon. And operate is the key. You don't have to really wait for the crisis to happen to open up your BCP document and then go through the points. You will have to have a periodic test, like a desktop or a tabletop exercise. You have to have an emergency preparedness drill as frequently as you can, and it is possible either by function or by division or by location. And then you have someone from the leadership team would have to really look into the responses drill and have to have a routine check whether the metrics that they said that they have adhered to is realistic, or would they have to really look into, if there's going to be a high cost involved, what is the optimum solution that I'm going to be putting in place in future. And of course, this goes without saying, there is always an improvement that you could do. The most important thing that most of the organization fail to understand during a time of crisis or such an event, the fatigue sets into people. The mental, the mentality of the people and the people working under pressure tremendously increases, because they are also trying to get the routine operation back in place, plus they have to recover. So the fatigue sets in, And people with a weak heart and a weak mind or not so very good physical health are likely to succumb to this kind of an environment. So this kind of preparedness or a drill would really do a testing on the physical aspect of the person who's actually in charge or doing the services, as well as how ready and how much of pressure the person will be able to take on. Bear in mind, if such a scenario happens, if not a pandemic or something else, DR is not that easy to bring back your BCP within the set time. It might take days, sometimes it might go to weeks. There has to be a continuity and handholding of services to the next hurdle person who is taking over the operation. But if there is no clarity who does what, then it is going to be another crisis waiting for to happen within the organization. So having said that, you have there are some prerequisites that an organization would have to have is that the baseline of cyber security has to be implemented because you are not trying to reinvent the wheel during the time of crisis situation, or you are not trying to open up the pandemic box when you really have a crisis. You don't attract or you don't go and bring in a new crisis that can jeopardize the existing operation. So have the basic level of cybersecurity in place. You could probably go in for NIST if you're going to be an American standard organization, or you can go for 27001. At least have the base. These are supposed to be the base for any organization to operate. Of course, as I said, that we anticipate that the business continuity could be made as a compliance, one of the compliance that the organization would have to adhere to. So start probably working on, if you have not already worked on the BCMS, which is once again the ISO standard 22301 on 2019 framework. And most importantly, monitor your performance, monitor the control that you already have. If they are not adequate, try and enforce those adequate controls, because once when you know that controls are not adequate, that itself is going to lead you to a DR situation. DR situation needn't have to be just flooding, needn't have to be earthquake, needn't have to be this a pandemic. A small security loophole could get you into a DR like situation. So having the books, periodicals, the certificates on the wall is not going to help. It's just only the controls, which is on a matured level, is going to determine how good your organization can come out of this grave situation. Having said that, we just want to give you an overview of the IAM who have been in this practice for information security, BCMS, FedRAMP, and also on high trust and other compliances have got a very good caveat of how an organization should be implementing such frameworks in place. And then, as I earlier said, this ADIO principle is a framework that can fit into any organization, be it manufacturing or if you're pharma, or it could be anything like power generation, utilities, retail, whoever it is. The ADIO principle neatly fits into your organization operations, and then we are here as experts in this framework to help you to adequately put what is required for your organization. The BCP services, as I said, that all the way from what we could offer is from the business impact analysis. We could do a consulting services on the business impact analysis. We do a risk analysis as well. We are geared up with the developing the recovery policy and strategies for any organization, be it small, medium, or large. We could also develop the plans, working plans, which is systematic in place, has got a standard approach. It's not something ad hoc, which is time tested and also follows the compliance of the 22301, as well as complementing ISO 27001. Of course, we followed up with the BCP exercise. We'll handhold you with the exercise and testing, and then a complete continuity management system in place, so that the entire framework as a package is what we would be available to give us an advice for people or organizations who are willing to seek that as a services in a short-time basis. Though, why I am, some of the customers, some of clients who have been working with us know the reputation and the quality of the work that we deliver. It is not one person dependent. It's a framework that we have developed. We are not single person dependent, and we have a trustworthy, reliable dependency, and it's cost effective. And we have been a preferred provider for cybersecurity as well as for DR BCP, and a strong technical and process knowledge that you can bank on. So trustworthy, competent, and unique is our key selling factors when it comes to these kind of services. And then with that, I probably end that note. I'm very happy to have this 1 hour session concluded. Probably I overshot it by 10 minutes though, but I'm open for the floor to ask the questions if at all you have. We can probably take about 5 questions at this point in time with the available time. And any other questions, we are more than happy if you could write to info@iaminfo.com, and we'll be able to respond back to you at the earliest opportunity. Now we are open for questions. Any specific questions from anybody? I see that there is absolutely no questions.
Hello, sir.
You want
can
me?
Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, this is Velu, sir, from HX Global. I think you remember
yes,
me.
Yes, Mr. Velu.
How are you, sir?
Yeah. Sure, go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Sir, now everyone doing a work from home, right?
Yeah.
In this scenario, how to say that, எல்லாருமே வந்து ஒர்க் ஃப்ரம் ஹோம் இனிஷியேட் பண்ணி ஒர்க் பண்ண ஆரம்பிச்சிட்டாங்க. ஆனா இதை எப்படி வந்து நம்ம செக்யூரிட்டி ஆஸ்பெக்ட்ல எப்படி கொண்டு போறது? பிகாஸ் VPN ஆக்சஸ் கொடுத்து ரிமோட் ஆக்சஸ் பண்றவங்களும் இருக்காங்க. டேட்டா செக்யூரிட்டின்றது ஒரு பாயிண்ட் இருக்கு இல்லையா? இந்த டேட்டா செக்யூரிட்டி எதுல கொண்டு வர்றது நம்ம? ஏன்னா இனிஷியலா வந்து பாத்தீங்க அப்படின்னா சம் ஆஃப் த டேட்டாஸ் வந்து செக்யூர்டா நம்ம வந்து ஒர்க் பண்ணணும். 27001 ஆஸ்பெக்ட்ல வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா ஒர்க் ஃப்ரம் ஹோம் நாட் அலௌட். இப்போ இந்த சிச்சுவேஷன்ல ஒர்க் ஃப்ரம் ஹோம் கொடுத்தாச்சு. ஸோ இதை எப்படி டேட்டா செக்யூரிட்டி எதுல கொண்டு வர்றது?
Okay, that's a good question for the benefit of others. The question from Mr. Velu is saying is that now that every organization has invoked work from home, which is not a clause that is entertained by the BCMS principle, but most of the organizations have invoked this because they want to have a continuity of services. In that event, what happens to the data and information security? That was the question from Velu. Okay. The fine question, Mr. Velu. Okay, that is the reason why we are always saying is that when think beyond the normal scenario. The normal scenario always talks about, if I don't have this, do I have an alternate location from where I'm working? The business impact analysis is something that we put a value of our services in the event if it is not available. What are the impacts that is going to affect the customer? Are the customer been well informed saying that, okay, if the services is not available on a continuous basis, can that be available on a scheduled basis? And now if the customer is, or the customer to whom you're offering the services or the solution is not accepting it, then you will have to come back to the drawing board of saying that, okay, what are the alternate scenarios that we need to look into? If the only answer to it is going to have saying that, yes, I have to invoke work from home or teleworking policy, which is acceptable by ISMS framework 27001/2013, which has also got a risk assessment that needs to be done to find out, in the event of my teleworking policy not being securely handled, what are the repercussions? So that is what we'll have to look into. Should all of your members be given that, or are you going to give a schedule for people to have access to it? You'll have to work on the pros and cons. If your company is willing to spend that additional money to get that security certificates to go for SSL VPN to connect it, there is a cost involved. If you're going to have an additional server to be deployed, it's going to be like a jump server where all the people logging on to this machine whether they have their home machine, whether they're going to be using the personal machine, they have to have a limitation using a jump server, which has got all the controls in place. But is that jump server is going to be monitored or not? Is another investment factor that you'll have to look into. Of course, there are ways and means that we could work into that can be looked into, but these are the unprecedented situation that comes into. It's just like a learning that you'll have to put it into your next continuous improvement process.
Okay, I got it, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, Velu Vaidi here.
Hello, sir.
Hello. In the aspect that we are encouraging the leadership team to think. Okay.
Okay.
Now you are in a fix. No, what do I do then? Either one day you need to think upfront. If in case this happens, how I will handle this. So each scenario presents an opportunity to learn and refine. That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, 100%. I agreed. So.
Yeah, that's what I see. Normal operational risk is different. Okay.
Yes.
BC is totally different. That is, all these combinations. See, operational risk means it will be one-to-one only. This is not there. That is not there. Combination of different things. So,
okay.
And that should be realistic also. That is why all these things we encourage people to do only on a brainstorming basis. So
okay, I have one more question coming up from, I've got a hand raised by Mr. Dildar Mohammed. Go ahead, Mr. Dildar. Mr. Mohammed, you had a question. You have raised your hand. Do you have a question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Sir, pandemic impact on anybody business definitely, and it's as a web developer, I want to tell you that we move on the cloud secure, and I take the weekly wise backup for the website. But on the ground level, I just want to know about you. What is the delivery process if anybody related to the uh, ground level business? That means any executive go to the door to door delivery process, like any account opening as well as any product delivery. Then what main scenario according to you?
Sir, okay. See, some of the categories of services that you're talking about, if it comes under the essential services, there is an Essential Services Act that is available. And for that Essential Services Act, there are a set of deliverables that even the BCMS address it based on the law of the local land. Right, sir? So the compliances, even though it is there, it is directly proportional, and the law of the local land prevails over the compliances factor. We'll have to, I've not got the complete scenario. Maybe I'll have to have an offline call with you to identify what I got from the doorstep delivery kind of things, and what are the situations that you need to address it. Maybe we will have a separate call on this one, sir, other than this forum, and we'll be able to work on with you for sure.
Okay, so good.
Thank you. Ratanji, I have your hands raised. Do you have another question to ask, sir?
Yes, yes, Ganesh, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I have a question actually.
Yes,
have a question. This is a different scenario for us. We are working in a manufacturing organization. Of course, people are providing support to our group companies globally also. But the thing is that whoever is working for global and all, they are providing support and all.
Yeah.
Whereas the local people, it's a typical situation for us. Some people are working on SSL VPN and some people are working with a remote desktop. Because of this remote desktop and the utilization of internet is shooting up like anything. The more number of persons, more number of users are accessing their own desktops, office desktops remotely from home or something else. So, which is, my internet is getting crashed. We are not foreseeing this particular situation earlier. Maybe earlier and all, maybe 1% or 2% at the max. 2% is a difficult one. But now the number of users are increasing. We need to verify about the firewalls, the strength of the firewalls, all these things. Is this also comes under the BCP, this network firewalls and everything and all?
Sir, anything if it's going to disrupt your normal business operation, will have to be factored under the BIA. Anything that is going to disrupt the normal business operation. I'm not talking about the operational risk. This is an unprecedented situation which has forced most of your employees to be working from home, whether it is manufacturing or pharma, whatever it is. The task force that was confined to one place in a premise have now got distributed with their IT infrastructure also taken distributed services. The internal level of control that your organization had got a very smooth bandwidth, and that has got a smooth technological rules that is applied to your firewall or to your VLAN that you had for segregation of that unwanted broadcast, that you are not able to do it from the external world. So this is a kind of a situation that not only you, we have got a couple of other clients of us who have also come back to us saying that they do not have the bandwidth to support the incoming connection. Forget about the dropping of the connection. They do not have to even make the internal request coming into. So they have to find out to arrive at a conclusion along with the leadership team to find out whether they can stagger the operations. Some are process driven, sir. Not all can get the flexibility of logging in at the same time. You will have to arrive at a staggered approach of people. This is just only I really don't know to the crux of how critical this is, but you will have to, in order to have the pie of an apple to be distributed across the entire task force, there has to be a division of availability of your infrastructure, and only then this can be looked into. I mean, otherwise you're going to be only restarting your firewall and then living with the pain. Now that if you have got the metrics of how many people are logging in a day, that's what I keep telling about, the monitoring of your services during such time, normal and abnormal time, is very, very important. Most companies ignore them. Not even a basic log monitoring is available of most companies. Have you had those kind of log monitoring in place? Now you are able to find out what was before and what is now. Then you are able to allocate which resources take much of your resources of your internal network resources heavily, and then you could have mapped them as a high resource or high voluminous individual, and then you can bracket it them. So if that exercise was done earlier within the network, it would have probably helped you when you're actually in this kind of scenario. But it is not something that we cannot do even now. There is always a way of doing that, to segregate that high network people getting onto your network, and then find out whether we can do a segregation of time slicing. That is also possible, sir.
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Ganesh. I understand. It's the biggest activity needs to be taken up.
Unless you have the existing data or the previous historical data, it becomes easy. Otherwise, you are going to start afresh. But there's nothing wrong to start something fresh because you don't want to be in this situation any further.
Fortunately, I have data. That is why I'm able to analyze it.
Very good, sir. That is something good. Then that is very good that we can share it to the forum, though.
Okay. Thanks, Ganesh.
Welcome, sir. Any other questions from the forum?
Sir, Vaidi here.
Yes, sir.
Sir, just to add one line to see, that is the importance of testing. So, suppose I have 100 people in my function, work from home for maybe 10 or 20 people, and see how the resources are behaving. Suppose if there is some abnormality, we need not get worried. We just repeat the test twice or thrice to conclude that, oh, definitely I need to have a strategy to address that. That is why live testing is very, very important, so that it will give me the confidence that in case there is an abnormal situation, it will definitely work. And personally, I have benefited from that. That is why I am telling you with such conviction. Okay? Thank you.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. And with this, we probably end the session. And I don't think there is any more questions. If people have any questions, please do not hesitate to write to info@iaminfo.com. We are more than happy to help you both technically And if you have any other questions, how to implement this for your organization, if you're having any technical issues also, please do not hesitate. We're more than happy to help you. And thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Ganesh
Thank you.
will be here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ganesh.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Vaidyanathan. Yeah.
Yeah. Stay safe.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.